Hello, today is Friday, August 16th, 2024. I'm Tony Mangino from TC2, and this is Staying Connected. I'm joined today by Laura McDonald, a partner at LB3, to discuss some recent legal developments that impact the use of AI in contact centers. Laura, there's been a lot of innovation in the contact center space. The use of AI is one of the more notable agents of that change. Now, certainly we're seeing it in the CCaaS, or contact center as a service space, a growing area you've been focusing on. Here at TC2, we have a lot of experience sourcing CCaaS solutions for our large enterprise customers. I'm intrigued, however, what can you tell us about these recent developments from the legal perspective?
Tony, it's always a pleasure to join you on Staying Connected. And I love talking about innovation, particularly those in the call center environment. Technology, and in large part, as you point out, AI, is making it easier for companies to respond to customer inquiries, to run more efficient call centers with happier agents. Of course, happier agents mean happier customers, and that's a good thing. But the law and technological advances are not always aligned.
That's the truth, but can you start by telling us a little about the efficiencies you mentioned?
Sure. For example, AI, and these are just some of many, AI allows agents to access information and assess customer questions in real time. It helps route inquiries to the right agents. It can better identify the issue at hand so that all of this helps reduce wait time, and it also reduces agent and customer frustrations. AI can take and use and assess real-time sentiment analysis to determine if the caller is agitated and provide suggestions for better interactions. It also allows call centers to respond quickly using AI to less complex issues so a real person can take on the more complex ones. It can make real-time transcriptions, and after the fact, it can help identify trends and a host of other enhancements. And this is just the start.
Laura, that sounds like a Steph Curry three-pointer. Are there any concerns?
Well, first of all, not to get off track, but that was an amazing final Olympic game. But of course, there are concerns. Any technology migration has risk. The goal is to understand and manage those, which is what I want to talk a little bit about today with you. While AI is delivering in this space, in the last 8 months, there have been a number of cases filed that highlight the corresponding risk and the need for risk management.
What are the cases, Laura? Are they legit?
Fair question. I started my career as a litigator, and there are requirements that any lawsuit be grounded in law and fact. But there can be creative filings, particularly in new areas. And these cases, whether or not they make it past the summary judgment stage, and none of them are there yet, or with one exception, they're primarily based on existing privacy-based laws and the use, the sharing, and the need for informed consent. There are 4 that I want to focus on today. 3 involve the sharing of information with contact center providers, and the 4th involves a hallucinating chat box.
Hallucinating, that's where an AI-based functionality starts making things up, right?
Absolutely. And that is what Air Canada faced with its chat box. Its chat box provided incorrect information on Air Canada's bereavement policy and resulted in a lawsuit. This one is done. Air Canada argued that the chat box was a separate legal entity for which it could not be held responsible, and it lost that case. This, of course, is not unique to call centers, but it is something to keep in mind for the use of chatbox in call centers, which is one of the enhanced features often touted.
Okay, so what are the other cases about?
All 3 of the other cases, which have just been filed in the last 8 months, involve claims that the use of AI technology to intercept, record, and respond to customers' calls violated their privacy, among other claims. So the most recent was filed in Superior Court in California, I think just last month, against Patagonia for its use of TalkDesk as its AI-enhanced CCaaS provider. Note, this one was filed only against the company, not the provider. There are lots of potential reasons for that, but companies should note that they are in the line of fire. In this case, the plaintiff, a Patagonia customer, alleges that Patagonia intercepted, listened to, recorded, and let a third party, TalkDesk, use the information. The complaint focuses on the exact enhancements we were just talking about that make the use of AI valuable in call centers. She alleges that because every call is routed through TalkDesk services and TalkDesk transcribes those conversations in real time and uses AI experience analytics, quality management, and agent assist capabilities to determine the customer's intent and sentiment and to guide the agent from Patagonia. and presumably to further trade TalkDesk's own AI offering, that Patagonia is in violation of the California Invasion of Privacy Act, CIPA, which is for, the legal nerds out there, Cal Penal Code, Section 631 and 632. And that prohibits eavesdropping or recording without consent. It prohibits unauthorized reading or learning of contents of communication without consent. And it prohibits information gained in that way to be used in any manner. She also alleged that these actions were invasions of privacy under the California Constitution, and she made some additional claims, and she positioned the complaint as a class action.
Oh, class action. That could mean significant costs for Patagonia. What about the other cases you mentioned?
You're absolutely right. And the other two cases were filed earlier this year and are similar in nature. They're also in California, but they're in federal court. One's in Southern District and one's in the Northern District. So the first one is in May. So again, pretty recently, there was a class action case filed in federal court against the Navy Federal Credit Union, so the NFCU, and Verent, its provider, claiming that they intercepted, listened, recorded, transcribed, and analyzed all the communications between NFCU and its callers, and that they used real-time agent assistant speech analytics, similar to Patagonia, without proper consent. The earliest one was filed on Valentine's Day, quite a nice Valentine's Day gift, against Home Depot and Google. And Google provided the cloud contact center in this case. Both plaintiffs claimed similar violations of law, including CIPA, just like in the Patagonia case.
So what type of damages are we talking about here?
Well, CIPA allows for private right of actions with $5,000 per violation in damages. And in at least one of the cases, I believe they're asking for treble damages and attorney's fees. So this could have a pretty big price tag.
So, Laura, every time I call somewhere, I get the notice that the call may be recorded for quality and assurance or training. Why wouldn't that protect the enterprise?
That is a great question. And I think that's really going to be one of the key points as these cases progress. In each of the three cases, it appears that the companies had similar type language. But the plaintiffs alleged that the consent was not specific as to the CCaaS or software provider, that the callers were unaware that a third party was, quote unquote, listening in and getting all their sensitive information, and that they didn't give consent to those types of actions.
Okay, so what happens next?
Well, the courts are going to continue to wind through the process. For the Patagonia one, I think the first really substantive in-court meeting will be in November. In Home Depot, they're trying to move it to the Northern District where the Navy Federal Credit Union was pending. I don't know that there's a specific motion to combine, but that could happen. So there may be an attempt to settle in these cases. If not, it takes years to get through the litigating process. But that doesn't mean that contact centers should sit tight and kind of ignore what's happening.
Okay, so what should they do?
Well, first, to avoid the Air Canada situation, you have to make sure your AI is accurate and built on checks. Ultimately, you're responsible. Second, companies need to evaluate their situation, and you got to ask some tough and key questions. How are third parties using the data in supply and support? Do you have a robust consent practice, and does it cover that use? If so, are you keeping good records of it? That's critical. Do you have appropriate contractual protections with both the customers and your providers? Enterprises need to look at the contracts with their vendors to make sure that information is protected, and you need to make sure that you have commitments appropriately limiting or restricting training and use. You need to ask, how is the vendor accessing and using the information? Is it anonymized? Does that matter? If a customer refuses consent, and this I think is going to be a critical one, is there a method to provide service to non-consenting customers? You also can't just sit pretty and say, well, we're not based in California. If you have customers in California, or frankly, many states have various privacy and data protection laws. And certainly you have the GDPR that you need to pay attention to. Right now, there's no U.S. federal overarching law. There's been pressure to do that, but there are a number of statutes out there that could be used, or state statutes that potentially could be in play by a creative complainant. And then you need to look at your insurance. Does your insurance cover this? So that's just a start of the questions that people should be thinking about if they're using AI in their call centers. And certainly companies should take advantage of AI, but they just need to do it thoughtfully. The potential damages could be big, both on the pocketbook and to reputation. And you also have to think about what happens if the vendor's hacked with this information. So, proceed with caution.
Laura, thanks so much. Great discussion today. And it's always a pleasure to have you on our show. If you have any questions or you'd like to learn more about how to mitigate the legal risks of AI associated with CCaaS solutions, or you'd like to discuss best practice for sourcing CCaaS, please contact Laura, me, or any of our LB3 and TC2 colleagues by giving us a call or shooting us an email. You can also stay current by subscribing to Staying Connected, by checking out our websites, and finally, I'd strongly recommend that you take a minute to go and begin following us on LinkedIn.